Hey everybody, Jake here, and today we're going to take a look at a very special and unique pen, the Kaweco Sports Skyline, or Kaweco Skyline Sport. Not really sure, I think Skyline first. Anyway, this is a very different looking pen that may not appeal to everyone. And as usual, we'll just go over some specs, do some size comparisons, like, neutral, dislike, and kind of give you guys my thoughts on this pen. Let's go ahead and start off with some sizing. So the overall length of this pen closed is 105 millimeters, 4.1 inches. The length of the cap is 70 millimeters, or 2.8 inches. You can see it's octagonal, very plasticky pen, because it's plastic. And the length of the body is going to be 100 millimeters, 3.9 inches. Length of the nib, 17 millimeters, pretty standard. 0.7 inches. And the weight of the body 6 grams, weight of the cap's 4, overall is going to be 10. The diameter of the grip is going to be 9.4 millimeters, 0.4 inches. Length posted is going to be 132 millimeters, 5.2 inches. And the diameter of the cap is 14 millimeters, diameter of the body is 11. So, like I said, fairly compact, short pen. So we'll do some size comparisons. So first up, we have the Fisher Bullet Space Pen. This is very similar, slightly less wide ballpoint pen. This is a fountain pen here. And we'll go and bring up the Lamy Safari as well to kind of give you a quote-unquote standard size fountain pen comparison. The Safari is a little bit bigger than some other pens, but doesn't really matter. And for a final comparison, we'll go ahead and bring out a unique item by Kotex here. Very similar in size, and although you can't see it, very similar in appearance as well to the Kaweco Skyline Sport. So you can see they're both fairly compact, easily fit in a purse or a pocket. Go and do some uncapped comparisons. Again, we have the Kaweco Fisher Bullet Space Pen and Lamy Safari. And again, the Kotex. This one's, when it's uncapped, the Kaweco is a little bit shorter than the Kotex, but still pretty similar size. Posted, you can see it turns into more or less a full-length pen. It's not quite as long as the Safari posted, but not much is really. And we'll go ahead and bring out the Kotex again just to keep things even. So again, short, portable pen, very light, fairly durable, easily fits into a pocket or purse, however you carry your pens. Go ahead and take a look at things I like. First up is going to be the nib. The design's very unique, which doesn't happen much in steel nibs around this price. The kind of flowery decoration at the top is kind of normal for fountain pens, but the Kaweco logo is nice, and there's the feed. But like this nib, it flows very well, especially for a cheaper steel nib, and you can swap these out, which we'll get to in just a moment. But I'll go ahead and give you an example of the nib and the flow. This is a steel fine nib. Right, it's very similar to Western medium, much wider than a Japanese fine if you've ever used one of those on your Metropolitan or anything like that. But the flow is very consistent, it's a very reliable pen, very nice writing, and, you know, medium kind of wetness. And these nibs are exchangeable. What you do is when you purchase a different nib, it'll come with a nib, a feed, and a grip. You can get them on all kinds of colors off eBay for like $13 or so. Sure, so you can get them on other websites as well. Next up is going to be the actual size, shape of the pen, this section. So this section is nice and contoured and doesn't really have a step up, so a nice length of this pen is the section. So you can kind of grip it almost any way you want to. The threads aren't sharp or anything like that, so that's nice. And you can see the pen does roll, but with the cap's octagonal shape, it functions as sort of a roll stopper. So that when you set this little pen down, it's not going to roll off the desk, you're not going to lose it, which would be very easy to do. Also, you can insert a clip onto this, or insert this into a clip, however you want to phrase that, wherever floats your boat. Those are optional, which is nice in case you want to carry this as a pocket pen. Next up, I really like the top finial. I'm not sure if that's really a finial, but it's very nicely decorated. And lastly, you can eyedropper this pen, which is great because it is very picky with what cartridges it accepts because of the size. On to some things I've been kind of neutral towards. First up is going to be the price. It's about $25, And for such a plasticky small pen, you'd think they could make this $5 to $10 cheaper, which would be a nice price point. Next up's the weight. Very light pen, which isn't bad for some people. You're not going to notice it in your pocket, which is great, but I like a little bit of heft when I'm writing, and it kind of feels like the pen isn't there a lot. And the last thing I'm going to touch on the neutral list is, due to the size, this pen only accepts standard international short cartridges or 2 proprietary converters by Kaweco. One is seen here. It's just like a little piston converter, and it holds a minuscule amount of ink. And the next one's a squeeze converter, which I can't stand, so I didn't bother purchasing that one. This one's okay. Not worth the money, really. The build quality is very poor, and you can see in comparison here to the TWSBI 580 All that it doesn't hold very much ink. It's a really minuscule amount of ink. If you're wanting ink capacity, I would definitely go with a short cartridge. And you can see here the fitting, international standard. A lot of people choose the eyedropper this pen. The reason I chose this is it holds a very small amount of ink. I carry this pen with me in my traveler's journal, and I don't want a lot of ink getting anywhere. So I try to keep as little ink as possible, but if you're going for ink capacity, you can eyedropper convert this and get like crazy, almost 3 milliliters of capacity out of this if you just have some thread grease. I forget the name of it at the moment. On to the things I dislike. The aesthetic. This looks ridiculous. Also, that's all I'm going to say about that, but also there's some seams, as you can see right there on the cap band, and there's a lot of wiggle when this pen's screwed in. That's very noticeable. I've noticed that since the first day I got this pen. So there's a lot of play there. Build quality isn't great. There's also seams on the section. They don't cut into your hand. You can't really feel them, but you can see them. It gets incredibly annoying, and you can definitely notice they're there, especially after a while. And you can see on the threads here, they catch ink very, very easily. This isn't from dipping the pen in a bottle. You don't have to dip it that deeply, but pen on your fingers, not pen, ink on your fingers. We'll go and jump into a writing sample here. And again, this is a steel fine nib. This originally came with a broad, as you saw on the pink swappable section. But it had baby's bottom, which, if you guys don't know, that's when the tines kind of look like a butt and the ink can't quite touch the paper. So I swapped it out for a fine nib, and this fine nib writes very, very well. This ink's diamine or diamine oxblood. That was very fitting for this review. Hope you guys enjoy that. There's a normal line with some pressure, and a reverse writing line. Again, this writes very similar to a Western medium. A lot of Western mediums and fines really don't differentiate very much. On to conclusions. This pen looks ridiculous. I'm often ashamed to be seen with it closed, at least, in public. So I keep it either in my pocket or with my journal, which it does great for my journal. It's very portable. It writes fantastic. Apart from the aesthetics, there's really not a whole lot to dislike about this pen if you can swallow the price and the build quality. They do have nicer versions of these, brass, copper, I believe. Those get way up there, and aluminum, stuff like that. So you might want to look at that if you're into this pen a lot. But thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Keep an eye out for some upcoming videos. And if you guys have any feedback, let me know. Thanks, guys.